Hey, Adam Richardson here, pastor at Sandhurst. Thank you for joining us for this stream on your device, and we have prayed it would be an encouragement and a blessing to you on your journey. If you're outside the Sandhurst family, we hope that it will only supplement and not replace the teaching that you receive from your leaders and the care you receive in the church where you are plugged in. If you have any questions about renewing or starting a relationship with God through Christ, please contact us through the email or the phone below, and we'll be in touch. A few tech suggestions for the best online experience. First of all, the bigger the device, the better. So ideally, you can plug your phone into your television. If you're having any tech trouble, you can reach out to Reeves Cannon at this number below. So we'd love for you also to repost and share this link so others can enjoy it as well. So we have prayed that this will be a blessing and encouragement to you. Enjoy.
Good morning, I'm Terry, and I'm going to be reading from God's holy word today in the chapter of Nehemiah, chapter 4. The book of Nehemiah, chapter 4. And if you can stand for the reading of God's word. Also, the scripture reading, if you wanted to use one of the pew Bibles in front of you there, it's on page 344. Nehemiah 4. When Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and was greatly incensed. He ridiculed the Jews, and in the presence of his associates and the army of Samaria, he said, "What are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they finish in a day? Can they bring the stones back to life from these heaps of rubble that have burned as they are?" Tobiah the Ammonite, who was at his side, said, What are they building? If even a fox climbed on it, he would break down their wall of stone." "Hear us, O our God, for we are despised. Turn their insults back on their own heads. Give them over as plunder in a land of captivity. Do not cover up their guilt or blot out their sins from your sight, for they have thrown insults in the face of the builders." So we rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half its height, and the people worked with all their heart. But when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, and the Ammonites, and the men of Ashdod heard that the repairs to Jerusalem's wall had gone ahead and that the gaps were being closed, they were very angry. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and to stir up trouble against it. But we prayed to our God and posted a guard day and night to meet his threat. Meanwhile, the people in Judah said, "The strength of the laborers is given out, and there is so much rubble that we cannot rebuild the wall." All our enemies said, "Before they know it or see us, we will be right there among them and will kill them and put an end to this work." Then the Jews who lived near them came and told us 10 times over, "Wherever you turn, they will attack us." Therefore, I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families with their swords, spears, and bows. After I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, "Don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes." When our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot and that God had frustrated it, we all returned to the wall, each to his own work. From that day on, half of my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, bows, and armor. The officials posted themselves behind all the people of Judea who were building the wall. Those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held the side as his other worked. But the man who sounded the trumpet stayed with me. Then I said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, "The work is extensive and spread out, and we are widely separated from each other along the wall. Whenever you hear the sound of the trumpet, join us there. Our God will fight for us." So we continued the work with half the men holding spears, from the first light of dawn till the stars came out. At that time I also said to the people, have every man and his helper stay inside Jerusalem at night, so they can serve us as guards by night and workmen by day. Neither I, nor my brothers, nor my men, nor the guards with me took off our clothes. Each had his weapon, even when he went for water. This is the word of the Lord. You may be seated.
Good morning. My name is Will Rutt. I'm the youth minister here, and it's good to be with you this morning as we engage as spectators of an entertainment show, as we engage in a worship service together, not as spectators of something, but engaging in it. So it's good to be with you. Remember God, celebrate redemption, and offer ourselves back to God. So we're in the book of Nehemiah, and does anybody have that friend who just breaks out the random question, and you've probably been asked this at some point, this question: if you were stranded on a deserted island and you could only bring 3 items, what would you bring? Has anybody been asked that question? If you don't have that friend, I am that friend. I'm the guy who usually asks that question because for some reason it's something I think about. Like, okay, what would I bring? A fire starter or maybe a bucket. I mean, a bucket's like one of those overlooked items, but you might need it, or a tarp. Okay, so it's one of those things that I think about, and I don't know if anybody has ever asked you that. Well, just imagine that you are a person who through faith in Jesus has been redeemed by God and called a child of God, and that the Spirit of God stirs in you to want to do something that glorifies God. Let's just say that happened, okay? And let's just say that you anticipated some opposition to that. You thought, okay, well, if I'm going to roll my sleeves in the direction of God's heart, there's going to be some opposition. What are 3 tools that I would want to have when facing that opposition, whatever that opposition may be? All right, what 3 tools would you want to have when opposition comes? Have you ever thought about that? Well, Nehemiah 4 has been really helpful to me in identifying some tools that I think we can use in the face of opposition when a child of God who cares about the glory of God decides, man, I want to roll up my sleeves and do something. That's Nehemiah 4. And here I'm going to show you the tools that I hope we will get really good at using after today. The first, I'll show them all to you. The first is this, a walkie-talkie. We're going to see this in Nehemiah 4. The second is this, an expo marker. We're going to see that. And then this one we saw very directly. But we're going to see these 3 things. I hope those things will make sense to us. And not just make sense to us. I hope they'll be things that we feel convicted by the Spirit of God to start using in the face of opposition. So let's pray again together. Father, we come before you and we acknowledge that you've given us your word not to just impart information, but to produce transformation. I pray that we would be good hearers and doers of the word, that we would say, yes, Lord, help, Lord. I pray that you would give us ears to hear, that we might respond in a way that glorifies you. In your name I pray, amen. All right, Nehemiah 4. Join me in verse 1. We saw last week that the people are standing shoulder to shoulder. They're working on the wall. People of all different backgrounds working together. The work is going. It's good. And chapter 4, verse 1 says, now it came about that when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became furious and very angry and mocked the Jews. Okay, so we're introduced to this guy who actually we were introduced to in chapter 2, but his name's Sanballat. He's the governor of Samaria, which is north of Jerusalem, and he has he's unrightfully extended some of his authority into Jerusalem. So he's been the big bad wolf around, kind of in Jerusalem, and now Nehemiah is showing up and saying, hey, we're doing some stuff, and Sanballat's like, I don't like this. He's angry, he's furious, and what does he decide to do? Verse 1, he ridicules the Jews. He mocks the Jews. What's he say? Verse 2. He spoke in the presence of his brothers and the wealthy men of Samaria and said, what are these feeble Jews doing? Are they going to restore it for themselves? Can they offer sacrifices? Can they finish in a day? Can you revive the stones from the dusty rubble, even the burned ones? He's mocking them. This has been opposition tactic 101 since the beginning. To speak words that are going to stoke a fire of insecurity. He's mocking them. That's too big. If I could kind of summarize these accusations and what he's saying in his mocking, that's too big. You're too weak. Why try? In fact, don't try. Just quit. Like, that is the voice of the enemy. That's too big. You're too weak. Why try? Don't try. Actually, just quit. And Sanballat isn't the only one who's talking. Another guy chimes in. Now, Tobiah, the Ammonite, was near him, and he said, even what they are building, if a fox should jump on it, he would break their stone wall down. Mocking. That's too big, you're too weak. Why try? Don't try. Just quit. Have you ever tried to do something and you had some words, and sure, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, blah, 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 lies. Have you ever had God stir in your heart to do something, and then the voice of either somebody else or your own voice said something like, that's too big, you're too weak, why try? In fact, don't try, or just quit. It's just very real. If we don't separate ourselves too far from this story, he's been rolling his sleeves in the direction of God's heart in building this wall, and now he's got some voices. And those voices, that's too big, you're too weak, why try, don't try, just quit, have caused us, I think, to back down from so many good things. You know, lead your family. Lead your family. That's too big, I'm too weak, why try? Don't try, just quit. Be an actual gospel witness in your workplace. I don't know what to say, that's too big, I'm too weak, why try? Don't try, just quit. Give thanks in all things. Start meeting with God and devoting yourself to prayer. Mentor that person, that person who for some reason they've just been like kind of stirring in your heart. Mentor that person. And I know this has got to be true for you. It's been true for me. Something stirs in your heart and that is consistent with God's heart. And then the voice of Sanballat, Tobiah, the opposition says, it mocks. That's too big, you're too weak, why try? Don't try, just quit. So how do you respond when that voice is so loud? Let's see what Nehemiah does. Go to verse 4. At the sound of the mocking words, verse 4 says, Nehemiah talking says, hear, O our God, how we are despised. Pause there. His heart stirring to do something that would honor God in rebuilding the wall. The voice, the mocking comes, and what did he do? The first few words of verse 4, what did he do? We've given this series the tagline for a reason. Bending knees and rolling, bending knees. Hear, O our God, how we are despised. Now, don't finish the verse. Don't read verse 5. We're going to come back to that. But he bends his knees. And then verse 6, what does he do? What does it say? So we built the wall. So he bends his knees, and then he rolls up his sleeves, and he says, yeah, I hear you say that's too big, I'm too weak, why try, don't try, quit. But God, hear how we're despised, and let's go, baby. So we built the wall, and this is verse 6, and the whole wall was joined together to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. Man, that's good. And I was just thinking, how much progress happens just in verse 6. Now it's unlikely, almost certainly not true, that the whole wall would have been just completely leveled by the Babylonians. There would have been parts that are still standing, but there's 2.5 miles of wall, 39 feet tall at its when it's finished, and between 8 and 23 feet thick. And in one verse, they get halfway done. That is some progress because they had a mind to work. Man, mocking happens, bend our knees, roll our sleeves. Let's get it. And they have such momentum as a team. Look at verse 7. It says, now when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that the repair of the walls of Jerusalem went on and that the breaches began to be closed, they were ecstatic and said, how can we help? This is awesome. That's actually not what it says. I know I read from the NASB, and it's different from a lot of you who use NIV, but it's not that different. It's not that different. It says they were very angry, and all of them conspired together to come and fight against Jerusalem and to cause disturbance in it. And they don't want to just come like throw rocks to cause a disturbance, to cause confusion. Look at verse 11. Our enemy said they will not know or see until we come among them to kill them. Okay, so this isn't just that we've gone from the voice of the enemy that is mocking to now, okay, we've bent our knees, roll our sleeves, and now the opposition is not mocking but conspiring. We're going to kill you. We're coming for you. And I just imagine, I don't know if this is true, but I wonder if Nehemiah was just like, okay, I knew that there would be some opposition, but God, come on. Like, I wonder if Nehemiah felt like, God, I really feel like I'm putting in the work and I'm doing my part and I don't feel like you're doing your part. Have you ever felt like that? God, you're just not behaving rightly. You should do something about them. I wonder, again, I'm just guessing, but if he expected opposition, but not to this level. And it's really important for us, I think, especially our young people, to not be sold a Christianity that is absent of pain and hardship and opposition. That Christianity isn't like a drive-through where I get to order eternal life and an abundant life, but leave off the pain, okay? Like you order a chicken sandwich and fries, but no pickles, okay? I'll take eternal life, abundant life, leave off the pain. No, the Christian life, if we're going to follow God, then we can expect opposition. And that's important because when we're surprised by opposition, when we're surprised by something, then we can begin to think, oh man, if this shouldn't be happening, and if it is happening, then this throws just like a wrench in my whole theology, and God wouldn't want me to go through this. Is God even real? And if we're gonna roll our sleeves in the direction of God's heart, we can expect opposition. It was not easy for Nehemiah or for the people. First they're mocked, now there's a conspiracy to kill them. So what would you guess Nehemiah is going to do now in the face of this conspiracy? Pray some more. Verse 9. But we prayed to our God. What did he do? What language are we using? He bent his knees, and then next words, and because of them, we set up a guard against them day and night. He bent his knees and rolled his sleeves in the direction of God. Nehemiah, he just had no faith to set up a guard. No, this is what's so cool about the book. There's faith, there's action. We prayed, and we set up a guard. And check out how their commitment to those things, particularly prayer, check out how that affects their morale. Verse 10, thus, in Judah it was said, the strength of the burden bearers is failing. Yet there is much rubbish and we ourselves are unable to rebuild the wall. Again, God, I thought if I prayed, it would like just change things. But the morale is not very high. I don't know what word you would use to describe that. Maybe discouraged just feels too soft. Hopeless, just we've been doing it, and now we're gonna die, and this is no good. You feel this? We had our two oldest daughters are on a soccer team together, Hattie and Kate, and they had their second game yesterday. And it's fun to watch them. They look like, little bees just chasing the ball. And they put Hattie, our oldest daughter, as the goalie for a little bit of time yesterday. And Hattie is a perfectionist. And so, she's a perfectionist. And so she's in goal. She's super happy. She's super excited. The stud player from the other team, he was really good. He was only this tall, but he was good. He weaves through people. He takes a shot, and it goes through her hands into the goal. And me and Sweet D were watching because we're like, we know what's going to happen because she is a perfectionist. And she looks at the ball in the goal, and then she looks down, and then she looks at us, and you know how the chin just starts going, and she just starts weeping on the field, just sobbing. Wow, just sobbing on the field. And she's like, I did everything I could, and they still scored, and she's just sad, discouraged, whatever word you want to use, that's how she felt. And so as dad, now I'm like, oh man, what do we do? And so I decided, all right, here's what we're gonna do. Pep talk. I'm all about the pep talk. But so after the game, I was like, all right, I want to help my girls here, and I like what we came up with. So you can test Hattie and Kate on this if you see them. Here's what we say: mess up, because they're gonna mess up. Mess up is what they say. Head up, head up. In other words, don't keep your head up. Mess up, head up. Give up, no. Mess up, head up. Give up, no. And then we say, never give up, never give up, never give up, go. And that's our little war cry now that we started yesterday. Mess up, head up. Give up, no. Never give up, never give up, never give up, go. And we said that all day yesterday because I'm trying to recognize as like a dad, there's times they're gonna mess up. And to like bring it out of soccer to real life, there's gonna be times where things don't go like I want them to go. And I'm going to be discouraged. And I'm going to think, why? And I want to go, mess up, head up. Give up? No. Never give up, never give up, never give up. Go. Well, that's what I did. But let's see what Nehemiah does in response to this discouragement. Man, chapter 4 is good. He says this, verse 11. It says, our enemies said, so Sanballat, seeing the vulnerability of the people, their morale is low, even though they've had some progress. Our enemies said, they will not know or see until we come among them, kill them, and put a stop to the work. When the Jews who lived near them came and told us 10 times. Okay, so whatever secrets they thought they had, they were not very good at keeping secrets because 10 times, like, hey, there's this secret, there's this secret, there's this secret, 10 times. When the Jews who lived near them came and told us 10 times, they will come up against us from every place where you may turn. Then, here's what he does. This is good. I stationed men in the lowest parts of the space behind the wall, the exposed places. And I stationed the people and families with their swords, spears, and bows. What did he do? We'll come back to it. Okay. But what else does he do? He after he stations the people, he looks into their eyes and he sees that little Hattie just kind of like, just discouraged, overwhelmed. And when I saw their fear, I rose up and spoke to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people. This is like straight Braveheart, riding on the horse speech. Don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your houses. So he does something, and we're going to flesh some of this stuff out more. But there's mockery, bend knees, roll sleeves. Then there's conspiracy, bend knees, roll sleeves. Then there's discouragement. And he's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to find where's the wall low, and we're going to bring two things there. People and don't be afraid. Remember the Lord, your God is great and awesome. We're going to bring two things to these vulnerable places. We're going to bring people, and we're going to bring truth to these low spots, to these vulnerable spots. And fight people and truth. All right. Well, join me now in verse 15. Nehemiah is going to make a new strategy because we don't know how long they station themselves in like ready war position. It doesn't say how long, but a certain long enough time for word to reach Sanballat to realize, they're ready, and the surprise attack that we thought we were going to have, it ain't happening anymore. So long enough for that to happen, and now Nehemiah is going to re-strategize what they're doing to defend themselves against the opposition. Verse 15, when our enemies heard it was known to us and that God had frustrated their plan, then all of us returned to the wall, each one to his own work. From that day on, here's the new strategy. Half of my servants carried on the work, while half of them held the spears, the shields, the bows, and the breastplates. And the captains were behind the whole house of Judah. Those who were rebuilding the wall and those who carried burdens took their load with one hand, doing the work, and the other holding a weapon. As for the builders, each wore his sword girded at his side as he built, while the trumpeter stood near me. So part of the plan is half of us are going to work, half of us are going to stand on ready, and those who are working are going to be working ready to fight. Here's the other part of the plan. Verse 19. I said to the nobles, the officials, the rest of the people, the work is great and extensive, and we are separated on the wall from one another. We're separated. That's not good. At whatever place you hear the sound of the trumpet, what are you going to do? When you hear the sound of the trumpet, wherever that is, join us. Rally to us there, is what my Bible says. Rally to us there. Our God will fight for us. That's the new plan. So here's them carrying it out. Verse 21. So we carried on the work with half of the men holding spears from dawn until the stars appeared. At that time, I also said to the people, let each man with his servant spend the night within Jerusalem so that they may be a guard for us by night and a laborer by day. So neither I, my brothers, my servants, nor the men of the guard who followed me, none of us removed our clothes. Each took his weapon, even to the water. Yes, Nehemiah 4. I like Nehemiah 4. I like it a lot. I like it because it's inspiring to me. It's like if there's ever a get yourself fired up passage, Nehemiah 4. Nehemiah 4. You know, there's opposition and there's press on, fight. It's inspiring. I also like Nehemiah 4 because I think it's very insightful. I think it's insightful to the way opposition works and has worked like literally since the beginning. Words that are going to stoke the fire of insecurity and fear. That's how it works. That's too big. You were too weak. Why try? Don't try. Quit. And actually, we're going to kill you. I think Nehemiah 4 is really insightful. But the biggest reason I like Nehemiah 4 is because I think it's just helpful. It's helpful in demonstrating the effectiveness of the weapons God has given us against the opposition. And I want to, there's so much here, but I want to focus on three weapons, and these are them. All right? The first one is right here, walkie-talkie. We saw it a number of times in Nehemiah 4. When there was opposition, and by the way, with this opposition, I'm talking a lot about opposition. And what do I mean by that? I'm not just talking about Satan, okay? And I don't say that in a way to like belittle the reality of spiritual warfare and spiritual opposition. We don't pretend to live in a world that doesn't have that as actual happening. Satan does exist, demons do exist, and there is satanic and demonic oppression and opposition. But it's not just Satan and demons that may be opposing us. It may be other people. It may be external in the sense of spiritual. It might be external people. It might be external in the sense of just living in a fallen world, or the opposition that we'll certainly encounter is the opposition that's internal, the fleshly voice that you say to yourself, that you don't need anybody else to tell you that's too big, you're too weak, why try, don't try, quit, because you can tell it to yourself. So sometimes we are our own worst enemy. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm talking about opposition. I'm not talking necessarily exclusively about like Satan. I'm talking about any external or internal threat that says, hey, don't do what God has put on your heart. That's what I'm talking about with opposition. So when the opposition comes, we saw it a couple times. What was the first thing he did? He prayed. He prayed. That's what this walkie-talkie represents, prayer. I want to read you why. This isn't my idea. This is just really good. This is from John Piper, something he wrote about prayer. He says, until you know that life is war, you cannot know what prayer is for. Prayer is for the accomplishment of a wartime mission. Our field commander, Jesus, called in the troops, gave them a crucial mission, go and bear fruit. He handed them a personal transmitter coded to the frequency of the general's headquarters, and he said, comrades, the general has a mission for you. He aims to see it accomplished. And to that end, he has authorized me to give each of you personal access to him through these transmitters. If you stay true to the mission and seek his victory first, he will always be as close as your transmitter to give tactical advice and to send air cover when you need it. But what have millions of Christians done? We've stopped believing that we are in a war. One of my favorite things about Nehemiah 4 is he acts like opposition is real. He doesn't pretend like it doesn't exist. But what have millions of Christians done? We have stopped believing that we're in a war. There's no urgency, no watching, no vigilance, no strategic planning, no Nehemiah 4. Just easy peace and prosperity. And what did we do with the walkie-talkie? We've tried to rig it up as an intercom in our houses and cabins and our boats and our cars, not to call in firepower for conflict with a mortal enemy, but to ask for more comforts and cushions in the den. Man. What do I hope we will take from Nehemiah 4? That we would actually see, man, there's a real battle. Opposition is certain. And that prayer would be something where we actually start to go, God, I need help. I need help. And less about, God, would you give me the weather that I want? Not that that's bad. But Piper talks about how this malfunctions in our hands because we've turned it into a domestic intercom, and when it's meant to be a wartime walkie-talkie. God, I need your help. God, you've promised to be everything I need, to do everything you've called me to do. I need you to help me say no to this temptation. God, I need you for patience with my kids today. God, I need you for courage when I keep raising the white flag of surrender to my fear at work. God, I need you. Would you help me? it's hard for me to imagine, but cool for me to imagine what the church, not just this church, but the church would look like if we began to use this for what it is meant to be used for. That's the first tool that the New Testament is clear. Man, this is one of our weapons for accomplishing the mission of God. The second one is this. And I like it. Go with me to verse 13. All right, read verse 13 and see if you can figure out what this is for. If you can't get it, it's okay, because Adam and Izzy couldn't get it either. It took them a couple minutes. All right, I'll read it. Then I stationed men. So this is when they hear about the opposition, about the conspiracy to kill. Here's what he does. Then I stationed men in the lowest parts of the space behind the wall, the exposed places, the expo marker. Okay, whatever. Okay. He stations men in the exposed places. And this is cheesy, yep, but really, 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 really insightful. And this is where, man, I hope we will have ears to hear this. He identifies, where are we low? Where are we vulnerable? That's what this represents to me. Identifying, where am I low? Where am I vulnerable to attack? We are vulnerable, and it does the church no help when we come and we do life groups, we do Bob groups, and we act like our walls are whoop, whoop, nice and neat and pretty, and we don't have low spots, and it doesn't help. We are vulnerable. Where are you vulnerable? Maybe you're vulnerable to sexual immorality, and the enemy is eating the church's lunch. And that secrecy. Maybe that's a low point in your wall, and you're like, I'm not exposing that. I'm vulnerable there. Maybe you're vulnerable to self-hate that's led to self-harm. Vulnerable to self-image that you're constantly cowering to your fear because you're not sure what people will think of you. Maybe you're vulnerable to jealousy or being a workaholic, thinking that you're providing for your family when, in fact, your family needs you. Maybe you're vulnerable to a propensity to lie and intentionally deceive. Maybe you're vulnerable. I keep doing this because I think like a low spot in the wall to uncontrolled anger. And your kids, they get the worst of you. They get disciplined not because of their behavior, but because of your mood. Vulnerable. And Nehemiah, it's so helpful. That's why I use the word helpful. This is good for me to go, okay, wartime walkie-talkie, and then, man, I just need to do some reflection and go, where am I vulnerable? Where am I vulnerable? Stop pretending like I'm not. Where am I vulnerable? And what does he do in the places that are vulnerable? You remember? He stations people there. And in fact, he has a plan for it. This is the easy one. He's like, all right, part of our plan is we're gonna have a guy with a trumpet. He's gonna follow me around so that if there ever is attack, because we anticipate it, we're not gonna be surprised by it, we're gonna blow this. And when you hear the sound of it, rally to us there. In other words, I love this. This is identifying where am I vulnerable. This is a predetermined plan to call in real-time help. That's good. A predetermined plan to call in real-time help to say, hey, I know where I'm vulnerable, and here's what I want to challenge us as a church to do, to identify where you're vulnerable and then make a predetermined plan to call in real-time help where you would actually share with somebody, hey, I've never wanted to say this. In fact, maybe you've never said it to anybody. But my walls are low here, and I need some help. I'm really, really thankful that we have a staff where there isn't an expectation or an assumption that we don't have low points in our walls. In fact, one of the things that we do is we meet once a month with Reeves. All of us meet with Reeves once a month. And Reeves is one of the guys in my life. He knows a couple of my low points that basically nobody else in here knows. He knows where I'm vulnerable. He knows where my walls are low. And when I meet with him, he knows what questions to ask. Do you have that? It is, what Nehemiah does here is so common sense. Where are the walls low? Let's put people there. And we just don't do it. You know why we don't do it? Because we're afraid. We're afraid that people will see, I never thought that you would struggle with that. And you know what? We've already seen, this is insightful. The tactic of the enemy is to use words that will stoke up the fire of insecurity and fear. And I'm afraid what they're going to think. I've been excited about Nehemiah 4, not just because it's inspiring or insightful, but because of the thought that maybe some people and some men would find one of their men and say, I want to tell you about my low point. I want to tell you about my low point. So that we can make a plan, a predetermined plan of calling in real-time help when we need it, when I need it. Do it. I can imagine that that's not true. I was going to say I can imagine that we all have something on our minds. All of us have something on our minds, a low spot. And I can imagine that if God's Spirit is saying, hey, you need to bring that to light, that everything in you is saying, no, no. And in the words of one of our interns our summer interns from 4 years ago, she said to our students, say no to your no. Say no to your no. Let's use these weapons. All right, I'm going to run through a few other things really fast because while those are really good, they weren't my favorite things about this, about Nehemiah 4. Can you put up the slide about Boromir? Okay, I don't have a very extensive slide, but that is for Adam Richardson because I figured I'd save myself an email from him saying there's a perfect Lord of the Rings illustration. It would have been just perfect. You just had to put it in. So you got it? Yeah, okay, all right, sweet. I'm telling you, for our new members class, we just need to watch Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia, and then that should be our new members class. Preach it. All right, so here's the best part. Here's the best part. Not so much, here's what we've seen. The battle is sure, the opposition is certain, our weapons are effective, but most importantly, our God is great and awesome. Man, this is the best part of Nehemiah 4. What we see, Nehemiah is not the only one acting here. Go to verse 14. We're gonna blaze here. When I saw their fear, I rose up and spoke to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people. Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight with your brothers. So fight, and remember, our God is awesome. Go to verse 15. When our enemies heard that it was known to us and that God had frustrated their plan. Wait, who frustrated their plan? I thought he stationed the people at the walls. Nehemiah stationed the people at the walls, and he frustrated the plan. And he said, no, God frustrated it. It was Nehemiah did it, and God frustrated their plan. Go to verse 20. At whatever place you hear the sound of the trumpet, rally to us there. That's what we're going to do. Rally to us. Our God will fight for us. God is the one acting here as Nehemiah is acting. And that's good news. That the New Testament might say it this way, does say it this way. Faithful is he who's called you, and he will bring it to pass. So, what God puts on your heart, to act in obedience to him, do it. And you can trust, faithful is he who calls me, he will bring it to pass. His Spirit has given me everything I need for life and for godliness. He is the one who empowers. That's what I'm trying to say. He's great and awesome. He's the one who empowers. But that's not it. There's even better stuff here. And it's in the verse that we skipped. Verse 4. Okay, so this is the first time he bends his knees in response to the opposition. He says, "Hear, O our God, how we are despised." Watch this. "Return their reproach on their own heads and give them up for plunder in a land of captivity. Do not forgive their iniquity and let not their sin be blotted out before you, for they have demoralized the builders." You say, what? That's the best verse? There's debate on whether or not that was a good prayer or a bad prayer from Nehemiah. I have my opinion. But regardless, here's what I love. What is undisputed is that you and I can call ourselves children of God through faith in Jesus because in the moment of Jesus's greatest opposition, hanging on the cross, he didn't pray this prayer. He didn't pray Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 5, where Nehemiah says, "Let their sin not be blotted out." When Jesus in his opposition was hanging on the cross, he said, "Father," what does he say? "Forgive them. They don't know what they do." So Jesus is better than Nehemiah. That's good. He empowers us to do what he's called us to do. He forgives those who don't deserve it, his enemies. Where Nehemiah says, "God, would you condemn them, damn them?" Jesus says, "Would you forgive them?" That's good. Thanks, Kevin. That's good. But there's one other really good thing. All right, this is a little bit of a guess, but I love it. Go with me to verse 2. He spoke, this is back to what Sanballat said. And I want you to see if any other Old Testament passage comes to your mind. Verse 2, "He spoke in the presence of his brothers and the wealthy men of Samaria and said," "what are these feeble Jews doing? Are they going to restore it for themselves? Can they offer sacrifices? Can they finish in a day?" Watch this. "Can they revive the stones from the dusty rubble, even the burned ones?" Does that make you think of a chapter in the Bible? I think I heard it. Oh, no, that was a good one. That's not what I was thinking. That made me think of, can they revive these stones, even the burned ones? It made me think of Ezekiel 37. And actually, I asked some other people and said, yeah, too. Ezekiel wrote about 100-ish, a little more than that, years before Nehemiah. I wonder, Ezekiel 37 is where he has this vision of this valley of dry bones, and God says, "Hey, son of man, can these dry bones live?" And he's like, "Only you know." And he watches in this vision as God puts flesh on these dry bones. And I wonder, this is just a guess, I wonder if Nehemiah, when he heard those words, can you revive these burned stones? If he thought, "Oh, I remember that question being asked about dead bones." And it probably didn't rhyme in their language, but can these, yeah, I saw in Ezekiel 37, dead bones can live. I see burned stones by the power of God. He can bring resurrection. Whew. Man, so Nehemiah is not really, Nehemiah does some cool stuff, and it's been really helpful to me, but God, man, he's the one who empowers. God, he's the one who forgives. God, he's the one who we can cling to for the hope of resurrection, of revival. So I want to invite the men to bring the elements down because we're going to take communion, and it's so fitting. We believe in a God who resurrects dry bones, burned stones, and dead hearts. And as they pass these elements out, they're passing out these symbols of the greatness and awesomeness of God that Nehemiah points the people to. Symbols of the power of God to empower his people, the grace of God to forgive and to bring new life to dead hearts. So as the elements are going out, we want to encourage you, if you're visiting with us and you've placed faith in Jesus, man, let's take it together. These elements are for anybody who has trusted in Jesus to be the forgiver of their sin, the giver of new life. But as these elements are going out, I want to encourage you to reflect on these three things. Where am I vulnerable? And to make a plan for calling in real-time help, the trumpet. And to thank God. This should really be gratitude. And he's great and awesome. He empowers, forgives, and resurrects. That's what these symbols turn our hearts to. Let's do that. Father, thank you that we can identify the vulnerable parts in our heart and trust that you meet us there with a grace that forgives, that your grace is greater than our low parts, and a grace that empowers. I want to ask that this church will be full of people who have the courage to make a plan for calling in real-time help. That we would be a church who proclaims our God is great and awesome. Amen.